Okay, just to show you this setup on the layers panel, it just has this file, and again the background when you turn the eyeball off shows the background texture is the checkerboard showing you that it's transparent, so that you're working always trying to work above a layer so you can actually move the items around when you'd like, have a little more versatility to it. The little arrow next to the layer itself will show what's in that particular folder. So this cascading this side of it shows the different sections to the layer. The eyeball hiding to show what's on the layer. Just to show you, it has the title, has some of these graphics, some of the type showing the location of this part and the sphere. So whenever you select this layer, I'm just going to click a new layer down at the bottom. You can go to the file up at the top for a new layer, or it can go to layer and new up here at the top. So you have all these sections, and it's becoming pretty helpful. So you just kind of give a couple presets in here. So real quickly, just taking the rectangle marquee selection and going into the elliptical piece, drawing a selection. If you hold the shift key down, just like in Illustrator and most of the software, gives you this selection, the marching ants, the texture going around, and any color that you choose from your color palette. Clicking on these colors will give you the color picker. Just clicking OK, and Option Delete, or if you go to Edit Fill, it'll show you this pre-window that gives you the sections to fill it with. So if it's going to be the foreground or background color, so I'm just going to click on the foreground and fills with that color. You can do the command and it'll give you the white. Option Delete gives you the foreground color. Okay. And a quick way to do the illustration is to go into the gradient editor, which is this tool that has 3 other pieces to it. And up at the top, again, shows all the options that you have. And clicking up onto this section gives you a number of colors. Here's where you got the copper from, so just kind of showing you that particular selection. Going next to this is giving you the radial, so when you click and drag, you can see the radial coming across that section. And when you click inside of it, this is the gradient editor right below it. So depending on which one. So I'm going to go back to the orange, and if you drag the color, you can see that you have that color stop. If you option and drag it, it'll give you that color again. And here you can go into the color picker once you highlight this to give it a darker color. So you can kind of build this selection through the color choices that you have down here. And again, option will let you drag one that you already have. And if you click on this one, gives you a lighter value. So I just use a few to start off with. And now when I drag this, it gives you the color choice from light to dark. If you switch this up at the top, you can see where it is reverse, and you can click and drag that, so you can actually very easily drag this section. You can't manipulate the gradient and edit it live. You can edit the gradient here, but it won't update on the screen. You have to actually redraw it and reselect this. And just remember that if you click outside or inside, you can see where this gradient starts off. So it's just kind of going into where the highlight is to build that section. And depending on how accurate you get to that section, that's what happens. Creating another layer and doing a different selection. Here's the ellipse. Just command to deselect lets you select up here for deselect, command D. And here I'm just going to put the shadow for this. So if I go back to the editor before I exit out of this, I'm just going to hit a new gradient and it'll give me the one just in case I lose it. Second one, I'm just going to go with a gray style. Let's see if I can click in here. And this will give me again the option to come back in and highlight this color. And if you don't want the color, just drag it right off the edge there. But it does give you location and the opacity. You can still manipulate pieces like that. Click OK. And if I fill this, the radial's still on. So I'm going to go dark to light, and it's also on reverse. So I'm just trying to keep a shadow going from dark to light. Drag the stacking order to put this behind it. And zoom into it. Deselect it. So this image right now, if you wanted to, you can soften the edges. There's a tool within the selection here for blurring that edges. So you have the dodge and burn. Right next to it is a blur tool. And when you see this with the cap locks, it makes it a crosshair or a plus sign, increasing a little bit. And when you drag this onto this section, it's blurring these edges. The other option is to go to Filter, Blur, and do the Gaussian blur. The only trouble with this is that it blurs everything all the way around it. And you have the option to do closing from there. So if you want anything to be kind of a crisp edge, you have to use the blur tool to come across the section. If the blue is too dark, you can go to the opacity at the top here and change the value there. And that gives you that selection. So that's one way to do it using the gradient tool. I'm going to give you another option. I'm just going to duplicate that selection by clicking on the thumbnail with the command key clicked on. And now I'll just put in another color and click on the brush tool. And the brush has the bracket keys to make it larger or smaller. And up in the top, when you click on this, you can see the soft edges for the brush. And the opacity is at 23. And the color is the same, so I'm going to click and get a darker color. And see if I can't shade this just by clicking and dragging the mouse across. Make the bracket a little smaller. Make the color a little darker. Here I'm just doing it from that. Click on the letter X and it switches to the highlight up on this side, making the bracket a little bigger. So that's a quick way to illustrate. And the letter B for the brush bracket makes it larger or smaller. And deselect. So one way using the gradient editor, one just using the paintbrush, seeing if you can illustrate and kind of get used to using Photoshop in there with that section there.